Hi, I'm Michael and welcome to this video. It's about how to teach your year 2 or 3 child who has dyslexia how to read. I hope this isn't the first of these videos you've seen. I hope you've seen some of the others, but if you haven't, then after you've watched this one, go back and have a look through them. In the last couple of years, I've probably helped about 150 students who are year 2 or 3 who had learning difficulties or severe learning difficulties to get back on track with their reading. I can't actually remember any of those children who did not succeed in the end. No, I can't think of one. So there's no reason why your child can't catch up. If your child has dyslexia, it makes it a little bit tricky for them. There's a few things we need to modify, but it can be done. Now, as you would have learned on the other videos, before you even start to read, you need to get the environment set up properly. So using a coloured page, not white. White is the enemy of almost anyone who has dyslexia. Making sure that the lighting is natural light or good old-fashioned yellow light bulbs, not fluorescent lights. And then things like making sure that the font is large and ideally bold. Anything you can do to make it so that the environment is easier is worth doing. Now, some of the parents watching this are going to be thinking, I'd love to do these activities with my child, but my child's not going to do this with me. Maybe you need to also have a look at the video on motivating your child with dyslexia how to read. Now, your child won't learn how to magically read in a day. It's going to take time. But this video is aimed at children who can already sound out the words like block, black, stick. If your child's not up to that level, then you really need to go and have a look at the video about how to help a kindergarten or year 1 child learn how to read. Now, the first activity that's worth doing is to get 5 or 6 letter words and look at how to make them into rhyming words. Words like steep, creep, sheep, because your child may struggle to read the first word, say the word sheep, but then when they see the word steep, they already know that EEP says eep, and it just makes it easier for them. It'd be a good idea to jump on Google and download a whole list of rhyming words that have 5 or 6 or 7 letters in them. It's going to make it a lot easier for these activities. With these rhyming words, I'm yet to meet a child who has dyslexia who doesn't love drawing. So get out these rhyming words, get your child reading them, get your child drawing them. It's fun, it's motivating, it keeps your child focused, and it's going to help your child recognise the word patterns. So they're not just reading individual letters, like the word sheep, s, h, e, p. They're not going to work out that sheep. They need to see the patterns, sh, e, p, sheep. That's what they need to learn, and that's what this is going to try and teach them. Really important, we're here to teach them to read, not to spell. Don't go off on a tangent of having them spell these words. Keep them focused on the reading. So a job for you now, mum or dad, is to jump onto Google and look up the 200 or 300 most commonly used words in children's writing and help them to learn to read those words. There are some words in amongst them, words like because or friends or though, that are very hard for children to sound out, and because they're seeing those words all the time, it's a good idea for them to learn those words first. Now, don't make this into some sort of reading test, just sort of praise them with the words that they do know, and the words that they don't know, just tuck them away, and over the next few weeks, gradually reintroduce those words, have them learn to read those commonly used words. A lot of parents of children with dyslexia think, oh, my child goes to school to learn to read. No, they're learning to read every day. If you take your child to the shops, they're going to see words like street, bakery, everything's up there for them to see. Every day is a learning experience for your child to read. And when you're driving in the car, point out words, make it fun, make it so the words are just a normal part of life. Now, when you sit down with your child to read, it's really important that you get the right book. Basically, look for a book that's fairly easy for your child. Your child should be able to read 90 or 95% of the words without having to be helped with them. Also, look for books that have writing that's well spaced out, and ideally a large font that's bold. Even better if you can find a book like that that has the words written on coloured paper, that's getting away from that white colour that's so destructive for children who have dyslexia. If you don't have books that fit that description, head down to your library or find another book that sort of fits that description and then photocopy the words so that the words are larger on the page. Photocopy it onto coloured paper so you're getting away from white. Now, it's important to remember what the real goal of reading is. The goal of reading is not to be able to sound out words. That's not why we read. We read so we can understand what's on the page and we can make sense of it. So a lot of people get caught up with trying to make their child sound out the words. And for a child who has dyslexia, that is so frustrating. It's like being given 10,000 tasks to do. Every task is monotonous and difficult. It's just too hard. So when your child's reading and they come to a word that they don't know what it says, just tell them the word. I know that sounds outrageous, but if causing your child to sound out every word was going to work for them, it would have already worked. So when your child's reading, tell them the word that they're stuck on and then get them to reread that sentence. That way, they'll be able to read smoothly, they'll be able to understand what they're reading. If your child's really struggling with their reading, read them the paragraph first or the page first. It means that when your child goes to read, your child thinks, oh, I can do this. And some of the unfamiliar words, some of the words that they were never going to sound out, they've got a chance at now because they've heard you read it to them. It's also good that if you've got a book with multiple paragraphs on a page, cover up the paragraph they don't need to read yet. It's a lot more overwhelming for a child with dyslexia to look at 12 lines of text and think, oh, I've got to read all that, than to just have them look at 4 lines of text and think, yeah, I'll need to get through those 4 lines of text. Even mountain climbers, if they're climbing a big mountain, they're not looking at the absolute top of the mountain, they're just looking at the next ledge. They're just focused on the next 30 metres. They're not focusing on the whole game. So when your child's reading, just give them that one paragraph so they can read that and feel successful and then move on to the next one. Now, what I'm going to tell you is big. It's really big. I want you to remember it. It's vital, and it has probably been one of the key things that I've seen work for any child who has dyslexia. Basically, when your child is reading, do not cause them to read from the start of the book to the end of the book. It is just a whole experience of sounding out for your child. That is not reading. Start on the first page, maybe read that first page to your child first, and then let your child read that page. And then when they finish, don't turn the page. Get them to read it from the start again. If your child sort of feels, oh, why am I reading this again? Make it a game. Get your child to read it in a funny voice or something, or a happy voice, or a crazy voice, or an angry voice. It doesn't matter. Whatever it takes to get your child rereading that section, get them to reread it. Now, the reason we're doing this is because the first time your child reads that paragraph, they're really just trying to understand it. They don't really understand what's going on. It's hard work. The second time they read that paragraph, it's a lot easier. The third time they read that paragraph, they're starting to feel like they've got it together. And if you can persuade them to read it a fourth time, they certainly feel like a champion. Now, let me tell you another key that has been so successful for so many children who have dyslexia. It's just made such a difference for them. Basically, most children who have dyslexia are trying to read at a speed that is too fast for them to do comfortably. What happens is they hear their teacher read or they hear their parents read and they think, oh, I should be reading at that speed too. They don't realise, Mom, my teacher's been reading for 30 years. And they're trying to do what they're not up to doing. So your child tries to read too fast, and by trying to read too fast, they make a whole heap of mistakes, and then they feel bad about themselves. Also, by trying to read too fast, they don't really understand what's happening in the book. Another way is to make a joke of it, to say, you sound like a race car driver. I want you to sound like a grandmother driving. Now, getting your child to slow down their reading, even to the point where they feel like they're reading too slow, is going to help your child comprehend. A lot of children who have dyslexia are not comprehending what they're reading because they're so focused on sounding out the words and they're so focused on reading quickly. Make sure your child is comprehending what they're reading by getting them to slow down a bit, and then by just asking a question or two about what they're reading, just to make sure that they are understanding it. If you've got a child who's resistant to reading, don't ask them questions. They'll feel interrogated and they'll shut down. But if your child's happy to read, ask some questions that are a little bit thought-provoking. Here's another tip that's big. This will work. Basically, your child has spent their whole time at school reading, hoping no one will notice them because they feel bad about their reading. Well, we've got to turn that self-image on its head. So what we need to do is get your child comfortable with a book or two, making it so they know those words really well and they feel comfortable that they know that book. And then pop your child on the phone to grandma or an uncle or someone, or pop them on Skype so they can read to a relative via Skype. And what that does is it gives your child an audience for their reading, and your child is going to get praised, your child is going to get complimented, your child is going to start to feel like, oh, I'm not terrible after all, I can do this. And then that can really make an impact. Now, 2 words of caution. 1, make sure it's a book your child knows well. Or if they don't know the whole book, 2 or 3 pages that your child knows well. The second one is, if you're going to have them read to grandparents, grandparents grew up in a generation where things were very critical. Things were very sort of here's how you do it, and if you don't do it properly, do it again. That mindset is not good for a child who has dyslexia. So phone up grandma or grandpa first and explain to them what you need them to do. You need them to praise your child. So parents, you've already now got more than you need. You just need some time to practice it. Don't try and do all this at once with your child. Stagger it over a few days. Little and often is the way to get your child reading. So not big long sessions, it's lots of little regular sessions that are going to work. Have a look at all the other video on this website, learn as much as you can. You want to make it fun for your child, you want to make it so your child can succeed, and then over a period of time your child's going to start thinking, hold on, I can do this, and then your child is well on their way.